8,000 meters up, a drone is hovering in air cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes, filming a line of climbers strung along a narrow wall of snow. One of them is hanging upside down, barely moving. The others are stepping past him, one at a time, toward the summit. A few hundred meters ahead, out of frame, a Norwegian climber named Kristin Harila is closing in on a world record. Fastest person ever to summit all 14 of the planet's 8,000-meter peaks. She doesn't know the drone is filming. She doesn't know that in 9 days, this footage will be everywhere, that strangers will be messaging her that she deserves to die, that a man named Mohammad Hassan will be permanently linked to her name in headlines on 4 continents. Here's the version most people already believe. A climber stepped over a dying man to set a world record. That sentence fits in a headline. Almost none of what actually happened does. Mohammad Hassan was 25, from a village called Tisar in Pakistan's Shigar district. Married, 3 sons. His job was carrying gear, oxygen bottles, food, up toward the high camps so other people's expeditions could function. Not climbing, hauling. He had never once been above base camp. Not on K2, not anywhere. According to his brother, he took this specific job, his first real shot at working above base, because his mother was sick, and he wanted the money to move the family somewhere with gentler weather before winter hit. On the night of July 27, 2023, he was folded into a 15-person rope-fixing crew pushing for K2's summit. A crew otherwise made up of seasoned Nepali Sherpas working for several different expeditions. He wasn't one of them. He was there to carry rope. Roughly 200 climbers were funneling through the same stretch of mountain that night, a near-vertical gully so notorious it has its own nickname among people who climb for a living, the Bottleneck. Somewhere between midnight and 2 a.m., Hassan fell, 5 to 7 meters down a 70-degree wall of snow. His harness caught him, but the fall wrenched a snow anchor loose, the one holding the fixed rope everyone above still needed. He came to rest hanging upside down, alive, in the dark, breathing air with roughly a third of the oxygen his body was used to. 2 Sherpas tried pulling him back up. Couldn't do it. They had rope still to fix, higher up, and eventually they left him and kept climbing. This is where the story most people know picks up. It's also where it starts getting things wrong. Harila's team, her, a Nepali guide named Tenjen Sherpa, and a Brazilian photographer named Gabriel Tarso, reached the bottleneck and found a line of climbers already stalled there, unable to pass a man hanging from a rope in the dark. They didn't stop at the back of that line. They pushed forward, past it, to see what was actually happening. Tarso later said Hassan had already been hanging like that for over an hour. No downsuit, no gloves, no oxygen. He described hearing him groan, a small, involuntary sound, the sound a body makes when someone is still in there. What Harila's team did next isn't seriously disputed by anyone who's looked at this closely. Together with one of Hassan's own crewmates, they rigged a pulley system out of the climbing gear on their harnesses, 3-to-1 mechanical advantage, built by hand, in the dark, above 8,000 meters, and used it to haul him back onto the path. By Harila's own account, that took roughly 90 minutes. It didn't solve the actual problem underneath it. No gear, no high-altitude experience. Whatever was wrong with him by that point, hypothermia, exhaustion, injuries from the fall itself, a rope and pulley rescue on the side of a cliff wasn't going to reverse it. Then, a radio call came through. The rope-fixing team, further up, was in trouble. Harila made the call that everything about this story now hinges on. She left the people still working on Hassan and climbed on. Hours later, in 200 vertical meters higher, she stood on K2's summit. 14 peaks, 92 days, a new world record. At that moment, she had no idea Mohammad Hassan had died. Two Austrian climbers, Wilhelm Steindl and Philipp Flammig, had already turned back that day because of the weather. From lower on the mountain, they sent a drone up toward the bottleneck and filmed the wider scene. Not the rescue itself, just a man in visible distress and a slow line of climbers moving past him toward the top. That's the footage the world actually saw, not the 90 minutes with the pulley, not the radio call. A man hanging from a rope and people walking by. It went online within days of Harila's record, and it detonated. Local life is cheap, people wrote, under photos of her celebrating at the airport in Kathmandu. The death threats started soon after, enough that she wrote publicly about receiving them. A GoFundMe Steindl set up for Hassan's family raised over $170,000 in weeks, boosted by climbers, Harila among them, sharing the link. The internet had already reached its verdict. Woman climbs over dying man for a record. Case closed. Pakistan's regional government did not treat it as closed. Gilgit-Baltistan convened a 5-person commission. Tourism officials, members of the National Alpine Club, expedition industry representatives, and spent weeks reconstructing that night minute by minute. Radio logs, photographs, direct testimony from nearly everyone who was actually there. The 70-page report that came back in September didn't let the industry off easy. It found Hassan had been sent onto the most dangerous terrain on the mountain with no relevant experience, without proper cold weather gear, without the insurance Pakistani regulations require for high-altitude porters. It found no organized rescue plan existed for a situation like his. None. Just individual climbers deciding in real time, with limited oxygen and limited daylight, how much of their own summit they were willing to give up for a stranger. The company that hired him, Layla Peak Expeditions, was banned from operating in the region for 2 years. And the report cleared Harila's team of individual blame. Not because no one failed him, because the failure, traced hour by hour, didn't belong to any one person standing at the bottleneck that night. It belonged to an industry that had, for years, been sending under-equipped, inexperienced local workers into its most lethal terrain, with no real plan for what happens when one of them gets hurt. That's a harder villain to burn in effigy than "she stepped over him." It's also, by every account that actually reconstructed the timeline, the more accurate one. Worth saying plainly, even the official report isn't beyond question. Journalists who'd covered the story from day one pointed out that some of its own details, including its account of the weather that night, don't fully match the testimony and photographs already on record. Even the version with a government seal on it has edges that don't quite close. Gabriel Tarso, who spent 90 minutes rigging a pulley system above 8,000 meters, received a formal letter of appreciation from the investigating committee. Not a headline, a letter for trying. For a full year, Mohammad Hassan's body stayed exactly where he died, in the bottleneck, at an altitude too dangerous and too remote to reach. His family knew precisely where he was. They just couldn't have him back. In August of 2024, a team of Pakistani climbers led by a mountaineer named Naila Kiani made the climb specifically to bring him down. Not for a record, not for footage, because his family asked them to. Almost nobody who shared that original clip ever saw a headline about this part. The version of a story that goes viral is rarely the same length as the version that's true. What actually happened on K2 that night wasn't one woman making one choice. It was 200 people, in the dark, inside a system that had quietly normalized sending unprepared men into its deadliest terrain for a wage. And a handful of individuals who, in the 90 minutes they had, tried something anyway. It happens all the same. Harila's record stands, exactly as fast as she climbed it. Mohammad Hassan came down the mountain a year later than anyone wanted, carried by strangers, because his family refused to let it keep him. Both of those things are true. Neither one erases the other.